We are live. Habari Gani, everybody, and welcome to the second edition of Keep the Beat. My name is Lauren Turner Hines. I'm the founder of the André Cailloux Center for Performing Arts and Cultural Justice, located in Bubancha, colonially known as New Orleans, Louisiana. And today's edition could not be more special. I am so honored to be here with our esteemed guest. Today is Nia, and if you are celebrating Kwanzaa or you are commemorating Kwanzaa, today is Nia. Nia means purpose, and so when I think about the conversation around holding the line, movement work, memory work, and the art of collective survival, I think about purpose work, and I specifically think about the people who are on this call. If you joined us for the first live stream, we talked about building kinship and we talked about decolonized funding strategies. And it was such a great call with guests who really, I think of them as the people who I get in the paint with, I get in the rough with. This call, these are folks who are joining us today who I think about when I think about the spirit of the work of building the André Cailloux Center, because I think about that as movement work, organizing work. And whenever it gets crowded in that thinking with all of the trappings of the nonprofit industrial complex, white body supremacy, and other systemic barriers, I'm often in conversation with the people on this live, the guests that we have today, to be regrounded in the spirit of the work as movement work, as organizing work. So I'm honored. So today, joining us for Hold the Line, we have Comrade James Borders IV. We have author and ACC board member. We have Carmen Morgan, founder of Art Equity. And we have Wendi Moore-O'Neal, freedom singer, founder of Dahlia Consulting, and also a dynamic partner at the André Cailloux Center. So welcome, everybody. I hope you are all well. We're just going to have a regular conversation, okay, because that's what I'm interested in. And so the way I kind of think about this in terms of setting this up is today is Nia. We are talking about purpose. And I had just left a community Kwanzaa celebration and where I was talking about purpose. And the question that was asked to me was, how do you know what your purpose is? And so the way I've always thought about purpose, and maybe if y'all have a different interpretation, you can let me know, is that it is me showing, it's not something I have to activate or be on. It's me showing up, utilizing my natural gifts, and it's reflected back to me by the way community moves around that, benefits from that, how the collective is impacted by me being free to do so. And that is when I am moving in alignment with purpose. So I wanted to talk to you all a little bit about, I won't make the question as big as what is your purpose, but what are your natural gifts and how have you seen them reflected back to you in terms of the collective, in terms of the way that the community is impacted when you're moving in them? And if, I know that's a big question, but yeah, what is your natural gifting that you've found over the years? And how is community impacted when you are free to move in that? Anybody want to start us off?
Well, in that case, yeah, if no one wants to start, I will. Actually, I guess I end up coming at it strangely. I start thinking about the things that I can't do or that I'm not good at. And yet I recognize those are vital roles. There's certain kinds of people who are natural extroverted leaders. There are others who are quiet organizers. I mean, when we look at the history of organizers in our community, we range from somebody like a Marcus Garveys, right, who is very demonstrative and pushing forward and encouraging people in much the way that a general would. And on the other hand, someone like Ella Baker, who is moving very right. So I realize that I don't have any of those great gifts. I'm not that kind of charismatic person, but I also think there's always a role for people like me who would prefer not to be in the spotlight as much as some others need to be. And as long as we are blessed, especially in a city like New Orleans, to have so many people who are willing to get out front and shake and draw attention to themselves and speak loudly and talk trash, how we do here, right? And carry on, as we say, act a fool when it needs to be done, and to be able to run off the plantation and to be proud of it and to sass the masters at the same time, then I feel obliged to help maybe with the more quieter side of nation building, of infrastructure building, because that's the thing that always kind of trips us up, it seems, if we look back historically. We have lots of great chiefs, but not a whole lot of just worker bees, right? And warriors. And so we need to, I hope to be a contributing part to that phase of it. That part that's not obvious, but it also is not bureaucratic in the same way that the English bureaucracy was. There was a great quote in one of those films. Maybe it was Lawrence of Arabia or something like that. One of the British generals was trying to tell Prince Faisal or one of the Arab leaders that what made the British Empire great was bureaucracy, that we had people who are willing to carry through and keep a stiff upper lip and do a job quietly but efficiently and build and build and build. And that way, great empires were built. And though it was, a little bit funny, the stiff upper lip and the characterization that the actor portrayed, there was a kernel of truth in that somehow building a complex organization that operates over many continents for a long distance of time, extracting various kinds of wealth and operating various kinds of political systems, means that there are a lot of people who are doing who have to do who who have to do quiet, unheralded work. And that's necessary for us to function. We have some of that, fortunately, in our community, but we're now fighting against a culture that encourages our young people to seek individual fame and glory
Mm,
and self-branding all the time for everything they do. Just getting up, washing their face or washing their behind, right? They want the world to know, what's going on. And that's a distraction. And I don't quite know how we overcome that, but it is not doing us ultimately, I think, a lot of good. And I think it's going to get
mhm,
harder for us in the years ahead. These are critical years. I've been saying that the next 15 years are a steady build up to what's going to be a really hot war. This
mhm.
calling this the last desperate days of white supremacy. And these people have built what they think is the greatest empire ever on the face of the earth. And they are going to fight to the death to hold on to it. And yet it's coming. The inevitable end is coming. Everywhere they look around, people of color are all over the place in their business and excelling. And now it's just a matter of them organizing to control their resources and their lives without the encroachment of this minority, this murderous, lethal minority that wants to control a whole planet for itself, even as its population and numbers diminish and its cultural influence diminishes. So,
Well, I feel like in starting with what you think you don't do well, you actually modeled your gifting in real time, and I know I've been impacted by it, so you showed us instead of telling us, so I really love that. Thank you so much, James.
all right,
Or Comrade James.
uh,
Yep.
yeah, just one little black man's opinion, as they say, right? Yeah.
No, I think that's key. I think that and not only is the quiet work necessary, but I also think that your ability to remind us. I always say that my dad has a saying where he says, "Keep the main thing," and I think that that's what I think about when I think of how your work impacts me. Is that it refines and allows me to keep the main thing,
hmm Yeah.
at any given moment throughout all these distractions.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And we have this.
Wendy, what are you? Wendy, I see you thinking a little bit. What are you thinking about?
Um, I'm very stimulated by what has already been said, and I'm thinking what makes how I you know I know my purpose because I can feel it. I can feel it. I feel it inside, you know? Like I know I'm a freedom singer because I get this feeling that it's time to sing. And I never really thought what made me a freedom singer is being a good singer. It's, I'd get that it's time to sing feeling, and I'd look around and expecting whoever was the singer to sing. And I started realizing nobody was doing it. And so maybe it was gonna have to be me
Yeah.
to write the song. And so I have been doing that since a kid. And it's because so I feel it. I feel it's time to sing. And then I feel the power of our collective presence when we raise the song and carry it together. And I learn so much about who we are, what we can do together, what we have, and what we need from the practice of singing together and charging the air with our belief. That's one way that I know is I feel it. And I think that's a very important power, the power to know what feels right and what doesn't.
Yes.
And it's free. You don't have to buy it. You have it when you wake up in the morning, have it inside, and it gets cultivated in connection with other people. So I think that power, the power to know what feels right and what doesn't, the power to feel what is purposeful for me. And it's also from reading. I remember as a kid, my mom gave me this jambalaya, Louisa Tesch's book. Occasionally give me other Black feminist texts and was like, you clearly need this. Because the mouth you got on you gonna be a well-respected Black feminist. So you better read this. And so I got gifted books by Barbara Smith and Alice Walker and Audre Lorde, all of these Black feminists that helped me to see myself in connection with other people, the people I'm with and people I don't see, to help me understand more about the power arrangements I'm in so that I can understand what needs doing to manifest the life that I came here to live. And I feel like the power, and then that leads me to the power that I want the most. And so my purpose is in service to this, is to, I want the power to know that I have a life worth living. I want the power to live a life worth living. I want the power to have that life, not just for myself, but the people that I'm with, the people I come from, the people I belong to, the people I'm with, to feel that they have, to feel and know that they too have lives worth living. So that's and then the last thing is I have the gift of a community of people who then tell me to do shit, and who seem to understand what my assignments are and ask me to do things and tell me. So I'm like, oh, this is my role. This is my liberatory role, like being able to meet the assignments that the community I belong to give me. And finally, okay, this is the last thing. I promise I'll stop talking. Is I get high quality porch time that allows me to meander my thoughts and find out and discover what there is to do, you know, and who I can do it with. And that helps me not to worry as much with what I can't do and to notice what I could do, what I can do, you know. And so, oh yeah, thank you, baby. I'm at a party. All right, I'm about to get some gumbo. All right,
Okay.
that's it. You know, like, so you do good porch time, and somebody will come and
Bring
ask
you a
you
bowl of gumbo.
if you want a bowl of gumbo. Yeah.
Mhm. Carmen, what's say? This is such a. I'm dying to hear your response, Carmen, because I don't think I've ever asked this directly of you before.
I'm just resonating with everything I've heard, especially and up to the bowl of gumbo. If that doesn't say it all, I mean, how can a conversation about one's sense of purpose not close with the discussion of a bowl of gumbo? Either that or jazz. I would just say this is such a beautiful question. And doesn't it make sense? Wendi and Comrade James, so much of what you've already said resonates with me. I'm just sitting in it and just feeling it's marinating for me. Just beautifully said. The thing that for me is a through line, I'm going to share my own, which connects to so much of what's already been said. But what is such a through line is that I feel this concept of purpose is a legacy that is gifted to us as Black people. I feel that we inherit this in our DNA. I mean, it circulates us. I was also at a Kwanzaa ceremony where this concept, this conversation about purpose was being had with a 9-year-old, a 13-year-old, the community, the elders, all thinking about it, both on an individual and a community level. It's our legacy. It's what was gifted to me. So I start right there with, first of all, when I think about my sense of purpose, I have to start with Black. Black, Black. I'm Black. My sense of purpose comes through that. There's no other way but for that purpose to be connected to Black people, the history of Black people, our existence, and a Pan-African existence as Black people. So that, for me, is first and foremost. And I will say, though, what I've been really, this has been my mantra for this period of time right here that we've been going through. I had to really center myself because, well, I had to center myself long ago. I realized I could let the world interact with me, and then I would just react to the world around me, or I could be more purposeful. So just, again, it's just been a practice as a Black woman, knowing that I don't believe we as Black people have the luxury to just, just muddle through, we'll figure it out. All of us come to a sense of, what is my divinely inspired duty here? I just don't, or it could just be me. It could just be me and all the Black people I'm around. All the Black people I'm around live through this lens of, what am I here to do? Okay, so just making that distinction between there's something about being Black, and then there's something about really resonating with what you're uniquely divined called to do, and where I find myself right now. It's a practice that I check in with myself on a regular basis. Like, am I still in alignment? I actually have to ask myself that. Am I in alignment? What do I need to do now? What about now? What about now? And this year, I really studied that question, Lauren. It's so, and I don't think it's unique to me, but I studied this question. What do I need to do now? Given what access I have, what resources I have, what art equity is strategically poised to do. And Wendi, I did what you did, which was still for a minute to listen to what came for me. I was in my backyard. I wasn't on the front porch. I don't have a front porch. I'm on the West Coast, but I was in the backyard. And I was listening to what was my purpose now. And I heard it very, very clearly. And I'm not kidding you. The first thing I heard was, Keep your eye on justice. Just do that. Keep your eye on justice. And then the next thing that I heard was, and then ask yourself, what are you uniquely positioned to do now? Just keep your eye on justice. And now, what are you uniquely positioned to do now? And then last but not least, then order your steps accordingly. That has been my mantra all year long. Keep my eye on justice, and that's what I've been focused on. What can I do right now? And sometimes I literally ask myself that question when I'm in a meeting. Some stuff's going down and I'm like, whoa, I got to keep my eye on justice. People are about to drag us off into some other, and what can I do right now in this moment that will allow that to be the outcome? And let me order my steps accordingly. That's what I've been trying to do, folks.
Call. So I want to get a little bit nosier, a little bit more in the business. But I'm thinking back on this quiet building, this building. I'm thinking about this power alignment, Wendi, that is key, because I think that to really move in your purpose and to build and to know what your role is, you have to know what power and authority you have to do so. So you have to know who you're connected to. And what part of this story or this continuum am I connected to? And then Carmen, absolutely. A part of the reason you inspired the title for this live stream, because I don't know if you remember this, and this is a part of how I experienced your purpose and gifting. I think we had a session through Art Equity planned like the day after we found out about this administration being elected, either the first time or the second time. I can't even remember. It's all a traumatic blur. But I remember I got on and I just said, well, I just don't know I don't know what else to do. It's hopeless. I just feel like we should just let people get on here and cry. And I just remember you, Carmen, and I say yell because you do have a way of vocal level. But it doesn't feel yell in the spirit. It doesn't like hurt. It's just this like pay attention. I just remember you telling me, hold the line, hold the line. And I thought about that and I was just like, hold the line. Maybe so. What was the pivotal moment story from your own journey that changed the way you moved in the world or affirmed your commitment to this work? What radicalized you or made your path seem super, super clear? Is there a moment? Is it a collection of things? What happened? What happened to y'all that made you this wonderful?
I was going to say, for me, it wasn't any one thing. It was just a series of things, of coincidences, of, in growing up and being brought up in a world that was already a community of people who were already struggling, and making progress. And I often tell the story about having been born in New Orleans, but my parents were living in Daytona Beach. My mother was working at Bethune-Cookman College. My father was a GI who had returned from the war, and he had gone to Bethune-Cookman to finish his degree. And my grandfather had brought his family there early on in the 30s when Florida was developing, and they thought there was a chance of a new land, of new opportunity in Florida. And they found out how circumscribed that was as time went on, and that the clans and Klansmen and the like, right, were really sitting on top of all the levers of power, but they continued to struggle anyway. And so the big icon, the leader of our community, was a matriarch, Mary McLeod Bethune. She was then retired from her role as president of Bethune-Cookman College, but in our world, we were told constantly that she was the most important and most powerful Black woman in the country, and she's right here in our community, and she knows you, and she knows who you are, Borders, and you better pay attention. And it turned out that her grandchildren, or great grandchildren, Albert and Nikki Bethune, who all went to the same kindergarten, Mrs. James's kindergarten. What we didn't know at the time, and I didn't know till much, much later, was that Queenie James, who ran the children's nursery and kindergarten, had been an old Garveyite. And so she had been a friend of our family, but she had guided us all along through her work without mentioning Garvey or anything like that, saying, this is what we do, this is how we do it, this is the way things are done. When Mrs. Bethune died, I guess it was 54 or 55, the whole class went over to view her body in this procession. And it was then that I realized that I was still a part of this struggle. Sometimes that I was being born into a struggle, not a part of it. I was being born into it. This was framing my world. And whenever I thought I had an idea, it was made clear to me that we're already on top of that. Mrs. Bethune's grandkids whenever we played on Saturdays, my mother was a librarian, and so sometimes she'd work on Saturdays. And her grandkids, lived right off campus, and so we were always looking for boys to play with. So we would go and play with them. And then about 4 or 5 o'clock on Saturday evenings, Mrs. Bethune would send for them. And if we were with them, we'd go along too, because she had good hard candy in her office, right? And we'd go get a piece of candy. But we talked, and I remember us having a conversation. I think I remember us having a conversation about Kenya and the Mau Maus and what a bad thing it was that people were trying to take this land from black folk. She just kind of looked and she nodded, said, okay. And I guess I was seeming like indignant for a 5-year-older, and full of the kind of mansplaining that boys are taught to have, right? Well, I know this about the world, and this is going on, and this is what's wrong, and has to be stopped and fixed. And she just kind of nodded and said, okay, all right, yeah, we're certainly going to do that. And it turned out that she was herself working on a lot of these plans behind the scenes through the United Nations and other organizations to bring freedom and equality to Africa, as well as to support the Americas, educate people from the Caribbean and from the African continent at her college and the like. And so I later realized that I was in a world where I was just doing what was expected of me. And so when later, I guess I was about 10 or 11 or so, I got cast in a play, a version of A Raisin in the Sun. I played the little boy, Travis. And it ended up being one of those productions that originated at Grambling College, but ended up touring a lot of the Southeast after its run there at the college. And then at the same time, it turns out that what likely happened was that because it was Lorraine Hansberry, and it was 2 years after the Broadway debut of her play, the FBI was on us, was on that production, and started following and tagging all the people who were involved in it in some way. And I later found out a whole lot of things about what people knew about me as a result of the FBI having kept that trail for lots of other stuff that went on through the years, through civil rights demonstrations and all kinds of other crazy charges, because they used to try to get us all on crazy charges. One time they tried to indict me for inciting to riot, all kinds of crazy stuff, just ridiculous stuff that tried and neutralize us. But so
that'll do it. That'll be a pivot moment. That'll be a
yeah. In one sense, I realized, all right, this I'm in this struggle, whether I like it or not, right? Yeah,
That's right.
they've placed me in this, and so all I can do is try to do the best I can to move the ball as best I can in our direction, and to liberate and empower us in whatever lasting ways we can. So, and I suspect that happens to lots of folk, right? The world lets you know you're black, and we're going to knock you upside the head. And if you want your freedom, you better get up and fight for it. Right? So here we are. Yeah.
We are. Carmen, was it a moment?
Absolutely. And James, thank you so much. That legacy, that history, that work. Yeah, I was just so moved by what you shared. But for me, similarly, it's a combination of a lot of things, that just becomes the sum total of a person, of a person's identity and a person's life. But I can tell you, it started. Here's an interesting connection. Marcus Garvey, one of the first places that he went to when he left the United States was, believe it or not, to Costa Rica, which is where I'm from. And he went to the Caribbean coast where all the Black folks are. And I don't feel that that's a coincidence. I mean, I feel like those politics that were so readily received in the Port of Limon, which is where most of the Black people, the Black Jamaicans lived and still live. My uncles, my dad, that they grew up understanding that it's healthy to question. So I think a pivotal piece for me is just being an immigrant to this country and always, that I would go to school and, get the lesson of the day and always come back to a home that would allow me to question and interrogate everything. In fact, my father early on introduced me to alternative news. He said, listen, you cannot rely on just the history books, even the regular news media. Just that healthy dose of questioning. And my parents, as immigrants, were not enamored with the US. They, as Black people, understood their relationship on a Pan-African level, but they were not enamored with what the United States stood for.
Yeah.
So I think that always just, that dissonance was always in me. And then lastly, I will just say this. I was a community organizer leading up to the 92 Los Angeles uprising. And I cannot tell you how that informed my politics. It was such a moment of reckoning, and also a moment that called me to really question, what am I willing to do? I remember that moment vividly, and I remember um, leading up to it. My brother at the age of 17 showed me what he had to do to be prepared for the police stops that he would get. And I remember, listen, I'm already doing community organizing, and still I'm surprised that my 17-year-old brother is prepared for a police stop with his driver's license, his insurance card, and knows the protocol. And I was asking him questions, and just like I was in. I just could not believe he's 17 and had lost a whole level of of innocence,
Yeah.
of being an adolescent of freedom. And I was asking him questions, and every time he would respond, looking at me like, what do of course I got to do that. Of course I've been handcuffed. Of course I've sat by the curb. Of course. And I just remember feeling like, oh, wow, okay, this is my young brother, not just, an older Black man who's being surveilled. That awareness that then led to the 92 uprising. And I remember watching Los Angeles on fire. What that said to me, and I'm not saying this was this was not my finest moment, but I remember watching those fires and feeling like, yeah, the fire this time, it is here. And this city is going to burn if it has to burn.
Yeah.
And I just remember feeling like, wow, I guess that's who you are. That's who you are right now, is willing to fight and struggle and burn this city to the ground for justice. Those were defining moments for me. And, I was also younger then, and I've evolved to a place where that might be somebody else's entry point for the work. And for me right now, my entry point is really solidarity building and trying to do community building. If you talked to me back then, and I still to this day, I won't name names, but I know what happened to that bus in front of Parker Center. I know who lit that bus on fire. You know what I mean? Folks were that angry.
Yeah.
That's good, Carmen, because I feel like that younger Carmen is me.
Yes, she
Definitely.
is.
always calls me Lauren Nat Turner. I've always advocated for like Harriet or something, because I'm like, I want somebody with a positive outcome.
Yeah.
End of that story. Can I live? But yeah. But yeah.
Laura Nat Turner Hines, she ain't playing. She is not playing. And a prophetic voice. You know, I didn't get to do my appreciation for you, but a prophetic voice. You drop wisdom like it's nothing, you know? And I'm like, the folks who can study with you and be in your presence, because your theology and your practice is what we need right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm grateful for your whole generation, for all of those folk who are coming up now. I mean, you're the smartest, you're the bravest, the most courageous, the most strategic thinking generation that we've ever had, right? Not to mention, the most good looking and all that kind of stuff, right? That comes along, right? Yeah, with being fashionable and fly and all that, right? But you'll also have a grasp of that thing that we talked about a minute ago. That in any moment you have to make those split decisions sometimes about whether you are advancing the line, holding the line, or realigning. And sometimes,
Can you repeat that one more time, James? Say that one more time. I know folks want to probably write that down.
well, it's advancing the line, holding the line, or realigning.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
we're called upon in many instances to be that situational with the speed of, say, basketball players freelancing or something, right? How do you make those decisions and foster teamwork and whatever it takes to reach your goal, that is to score and to win? We're going to be pressed more and more as we see the clear and glaring need for stronger and more effective intergenerational united fronts among our people that are transcontinental, and take us back to Garvey, where you had chapters all around the globe. New Orleans, as it turned out, was one of the Garvey organizing hotspots. There were something like 81 chapters in Louisiana, and 4 of them alone in New Orleans. And part of Garvey's so-called downfall was him coming to New Orleans in 1922 to lecture, and people had organized it, and the police turned him away, and so they snuck around and laid low. And the following night, he had a lecture anyway. And then after that, he really became persona non grata. But all those people, Audley Moore, Queen Mother Moore, Virginia Collins, all those people from the New Orleans movement came out of this Garveyite, broad-based umbrella Africa for Africans kind of perspective. And we have to, through this period, really build and weave these connections, relationships, this infrastructure tighter and tighter and broader than we've ever had before, because the pounding against it is going to be more and more severe as we go along. This is the money that we're after now. Yeah. And they're not going to give up the money without a fight to the death. And so we have to recognize that that's coming, and we have to be more strategic than they are. Fortunately, what they've shown us now is that they're a bunch of can't get it together themselves, right? They just kind of knee-jerk reactions to things, and that's going to be the trap that seals their doom. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that they can't do an awful lot of damage in the interim, and as they try to hold on to power and control. So you've got to keep upping our game.
And that, I think that's a good segue to my final kind of prompt for our time together. But I'm thinking about, we talked about Southern movement building. I'm coming straight to you, Wendi, with this one. I mean, I'm also thinking about, your background, Carmen, and being, I'm thinking about global South too. You know what I mean? I'm thinking about the American South. I'm also talking about the global South and what the movements that have originated throughout the South have always taught the rest of the world, and what in the American South, what they've taught the rest of the country about how to organize, how to remember, how to resist. So, Wendi, when you look at the current moment we're in with everything that James just laid out, what do you think we all need to remember? What do you think we need to reclaim from that Southern organizing tradition and principle in order to build the movements that last? And I'm asking you this specifically because your practice is so rooted in that tradition. But what do you think that we need to reclaim from that tradition in order to build the movements that will last us, that will endure right now?
I think of a couple of things. I actually go back to the ships, and I'm so grateful to hear, one of the songs that just insists on coming out of my mouth is the song I learned from Bernice Johnson Reagan, and she says, "Lord, Lord, I got her right. Oh, Lord, Lord, I got her right. Oh, Lord, Lord, I got her right. I got her right to the tree of life."
Yes. Yes.
And it just moves me so much. And I think it moves me because I need to be reminded what's true. And that's not the way Dr. Reagan sang it, but I sing it the way it comes out of my body. And that's an important thing too. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing I know about that song from Dr. Reagan is she says that whenever you hear Black people saying that phrase, "I got a right to the tree of life," it's a radical statement.
Mm-hmm.
It's, of course, it's true when all beings have a right to the tree of life. But what makes it a radical statement is when people whose social, political, and economic reality, the reality of that socially is not reflected in the social, political, and economic material condition, you know? So being able to just be reminded what is true. I'm sorry, I got a little distracted because it's sounding good over here. They singing.
Yeah, no, I think that's important to reclaiming our ability to remember what is true.
So and even no matter what is going on in the material condition is what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
it's miraculous to me that I know that truth, that I have a right to the tree of life, in spite of the fact that I show up in the world as a person that sometimes people assume is trans, in a politic that is scapegoating trans people
Mm-hmm.
for the failings of capitalism. And, like I could go on and on, but I'm just saying the politic of the moment may not affirm that truth. But I have this sound just resonating in my being with the truth that I have a right to the tree of life. And knowing that that came from people who survived the Middle Passage and survived being in resistance to these conditions that have been the worst that I could imagine, beyond what I could imagine. For me to receive that's a kind of power that always carries me forward. And I'm saying that because I don't know how clear this is, but to me, it is love.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Ashe.
cheap love. I mean, that tells me that the universe loves me.
Yeah.
And the people whose blood that runs through my veins loved me before they even imagined
Any of this.
right. That and that is literally moving through that love is moving through my being
Yeah.
and holding me up. It connects me with the dignity in my spine.
Yeah.
That's right.
And it's not just coming from me. It is in me, but it's held up by the voices around me and that are with me. So I go back to the ships, and I'm not talking about the fact that we were placed in the ships, but that the people in those ships survived.
Yes.
And carry that with them.
Because
the more and more. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
because I hear them
Yeah.
and I feel them and I'm held up by them and I'm loved by them, and it makes me want to meet them.
Mm.
It compels me and pushes me to meet the genius and the brilliance with my best.
And with that, I think we could go ahead and close out on that. What's resonating with that is the more and more that I get into the work with the center, with the larger work of just creation of space for Black life and Blackness and Black people, the more and more it just comes down to a simple love ethic. The more and more when I start to describe what the work is, it's like to remember that we are love, we embody love, that we have to love one another.
Yeah.
So that is resonating so deeply with me. And I think that I've never heard it articulated that way, Wendi, but meeting them
Yes.
is what I am. That is the compulsion. That is the compulsion. That is the drive. And I feel like that is the pressure, and that is the compulsion that is rests with me at the André Cailloux Center to meet the history, the legacy of Cailloux and his wife, Felice Couillon, Felice Cailloux, with my best,
Yes.
with a demand that the space be shaped and filled with their spirit and energy. So I just want to say, first and foremost, this was my Kwanzaa gift from each and every one of you. I don't know if you realize that. You have all blessed me today as I go into this new year. I just want to pass Lauren. I just want to thank Past Lauren for trying to facilitate this, because this was good. And also, I want to thank the people that we do not see on this call. I want to thank Natalie Thomas, our strategic operations and initiatives architect at the André Cailloux Center. I want to thank Caitlin Wilson, who facilitates all of the flow and connectivity. I want to thank Jay Mix, Jessica Mixon, for all of the ways that they share out and the work that we're doing on social media and building that community and have supported this live stream series. And I want to thank everyone who's joining us. The André Cailloux Center, we're a baby. We are 2.5 years old, and we are on the precipice of doing a big big thing, which is to acquire our space. This live stream, this series of live streams and conversations go to support our end of year giving, which goes into January 10th. And I just finished telling a group of folks not too long ago, we are in the best place. And people say this all the time, but I really do mean it. The André Cailloux Center is in a position right now where literally, folks, no matter the size of your donation, the impact on us in this moment is amplified infinitely. You will see how you contribute to this space manifest and compound and compound and compound. Everyone on this live stream, all of these guests have contributed and invested in the building of this space, the infrastructure, the structure itself. And I hope I also hope that has been your experience, that it's continuing to compound, that investment is compounding. And the return on this is a healthy, whole, gathered community.
Yeah.
And so I just want to thank you all. And I also want to mention that our work is not in isolation. We don't do this work in isolation, obviously. So I want to give a moment to talk about what are the ways that your work can be supported in this moment. All of the great movement work that you all are doing, building, the quiet building, right? The connection, the meeting, of the ancestors with our best. How can that be supported in this moment? James, I'm going to start with you.
Well, first, I want to say that I think the work that the Cailloux Center is doing is critically important, not just in New Orleans, but around the country. The example that you're setting as modern day freedom fighters, right? As exodusters, as people who are claiming a black land, black space, black control over space is critically important. Just as Wendi was talking about the power of song. You know, we always say that probably the two greatest assets that we've had from our recent 20th century struggles have been holding on to black song from the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s, and to reclaiming African dance in the 70s and 80s as part of the Black Arts movement. And as we continue to go forward and work and support organizations and communities and our youth and elders in this work, it's important that there also be physical anchors to accompany the spiritual anchors. As you can see that people gather, and New Orleans is a place that's great for people gathering in the street and making, the city rise, with power and spirit. But we also need places to house it as well. And so we need to have access to both. And what the Cailloux Center is doing is really instrumental, I think, as we go forward. And I'm just delighted to be a part of the service to help realize this great campaign.
Thank you so much, James.
What James said, ditto. We need the center. We need ACC.
Yeah.
We need the physical manifestation of the legacy and the social justice movement building work that we've all been talking about. So, Ashe.
Yeah, and I just want to chime in to say thank you. Thank you, to both of you as infrastructure support to the center. Thank you, Lauren, to just making your phone number available.
And taking your calls, she takes your calls. Okay. All right.
And from Mr. Jason, who lets us in every last Sunday of the month. You know, that space you're talking about, like, it's just been tremendous to have a regular, like, I've been doing the Sing now for 10 years. And having a space that people can come to regularly, it has just impacted the Sing immeasurably. This one little story is right after ICE started their slave catching phase. One of the people who regularly attends the Sing is an immigration attorney. She, at the end of the Sing, shared that one of her clients had a check-in, and they were pretty certain that at the check-in she was going to be illegally detained.
Mm-hmm.
And she was very distraught that she wasn't going to be able to do anything about that. And so she asked us to sing Michaela Harrison's song, "In This Moment, I'm Manifesting Protection. There's a force all around keeping me safe and whole." And we did. And later, the next day, she told me that her client was not detained.
Whoa.
And has not yet been detained
because
we covered that person in the prayer
Yes.
of our collective belief.
Yeah.
And I think that is the space that the ACC provided.
Oh.
Put it in the air. That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. In all the ways that the space is operating as a different type of center, it still serves space as sanctuary. It still serves fellowship in the ways that people associate with traditional church. And for that, I'm truly grateful. And so we are fully embracing that. Once again, I want to thank everyone on this call. I feel so grateful and blessed to be able to say this. I'm in community with you all. These are my peoples. And our next conversation, I know this one is going to blow up because this one was really, really good. The last one was great too, but this one I know people are going to love and want this on replay. Our next and final Keeping the Beat live stream will happen in early January. We'll be sure to get the word out. But thank you. And that concludes our Keeping the Beat with Comrade James Borders IV, Carmen Morgan, and Wendi Moore-O'Neal. Thank y'all so much and good night.
Thank you all, good sisters. Yeah, you've been such an inspiration to me, and I hope this will continue.
Absolutely.
God bless. All right, Nashe.